Thanks to Ulster Bank Boost for inviting me along. No, I think this is great. I think the presentators earlier on were brilliant. You know, I'm always skeptical. You see these strapline, help for what matters. There's someone out there who's, got Ulster Bank to pay a bunch of money for a clever strapline. But generally, I've been here a couple of years now, and I'm seeing that actually they are producing stuff that matters. And stuff this morning was really good. And I think, Ulster Bank to be applauded for this. And I think the message for Mark and everything and Lisa is really important. If you want this thing to continue, you've got to feed back. We've got a Q&A happening in a bit. Ask the questions. We've got the experts in the room. So I think that's the important message. So thanks for being here. You keep hyping me up. I'm nervous I'm going to be crap, but I'll sort of work my way through it. And this is the last bit, so we're nearly there. All right, so let me just do a quick technology. Right, so the first thing, my funny accent, why am I here? More location as opposed to a philosophical view on life. Well, about 20 years ago, I fell in love with a beautiful girl from County Down. And as things progressed, we ended up getting married. And the thing, when you marry a girl from Northern Ireland, you acquire a Northern Irish mother-in-law. This is graphically an illustration of my mother-in-law, not my mother-in-law. Okay, and so the thing with those is then when you start having children, she gets promoted to a gran, okay? And the thing about these Northern Irish mother-in-laws, they're pretty persuasive, okay? And so we realized that, I think I was the only person who didn't realize I was going to move here, okay? So eventually we did the good thing. 4 years ago, we moved here to Northern Ireland. So that's what brought us here. Okay, and so I've learned a few things here. So I'm defined as a blow-in, and a blow-in is called arrive casually and unannounced. If you're a male blow-in married to a girl from here, you just done what you're told, all right? You realise tray bakes, as you can see, genuinely, they're called Northern Irish cuisine. I don't know if you know that. I've learnt never decline a tray bake of anyone over 75. And this is genuine, I'm going to tell you. My wife once said she was going to wash the bathroom tiles. She actually was going to wash the bathroom tiles, okay? So I'm learning with this whole Hi Nye Brian Kai stuff that, I'm sort of getting there. Okay, so that's why I'm here. Now, over the past 20 years, I've been part of a really interesting tech point of view. A number of you are trying to do the sums now. Yes, I am a bit older than I look, all right? And the best way to sort of illustrate the past 20 years for me is summed up by this guy. So this guy is called Wayne Gretzky. Wayne Gretzky was one of the best ice hockey players ever. He scored more goals than anyone else, blah, blah. So he said, the reason he's so successful is some people skate to the puck. I skate to where the puck's going to be. And I think that's a really good illustration. So I'm going to continue with the ice hockey theme, okay? And looking at the past 20 years of tech revolution. So when I started way back in 1997, do you remember these days, John? So the internet used to look like this. It would come up really slowly. And you had to go to the internet. You would go to a little thing, a box like that, and that was the internet. And this is what was called, sorry, with technology, 1 second. There we go. This is called Web 1.0. We didn't know it's called that until Web 2.0 came along, and then we named it that, all right? So then the puck, you can see, sort of moved. So the internet went from a place you went to onto the screens, and we started looking, my God, they're going to put websites on these phone things. How the hell are we going to put a website on that? It was called Web 2.0. Suddenly, people like TripAdvisor were doing well, and you wouldn't go to a travel agent. You would base your entire summer holiday on what Bob from Houston said about this place, right? So we started developing more over that period into sort of the blogs and the reviews. And we thought, that's pretty interesting. Things are going well. Then suddenly it's going again. And they started putting banking onto phones, right? The last thing you did with the phone was actually use it to call, okay? It's the third generation web, and things were changing really fast. So for us, with the social network and content, we're thinking, where is this going? So we always realized we had to stay ahead. And now we're going to the fourth generation, which is just getting ludicrous, right? And this stuff's coming to gadgets. We're on the banking side. People are talking about having bracelets now with your bank account. You just walk in. Amazon is saying, you don't worry about having a bank card, Ulster Bank. You just walk out with your shopping. We'll take care of that, okay? So it's a really interesting space. Over the past 20 years, the puck's moved, and I'm part of a group of people, always had to sort of stay ahead of it, really. It's been interesting. It's been sort of tough. Over here in Northern Ireland, we've been playing around in the virtual space. A lot of people think virtual reality is just the gaming, exciting stuff. But look, there's a little firm in Newton Ards, a state agent. They've got a brilliant little gaming thing. A little thing for autistic children for moving. brilliant, simple, works really well. That's a great application. So virtual reality, if you think, oh, it's not for us, yeah, there's things there. The augmented space has been interesting. We've been working in the augmented space for a few years now. No one got it. 3 years ago, we were pulling up these really cool things. We actually made augmented Mr. Tato. So Mr. Tato is still live. He pops up on the Tato packet. It's very cool. No one got it. Pokemon Go pops up. People were, got it. I see what you're talking about now. In fact, we did something for Ulster Bank to demonstrate some innovation. Went down to your colleagues down in Dublin and I just walked in with a bank card and we put a thing over it and we played a TV advert on the bank card. Turned it into a nice little TV screen. The application, I don't know, you could have a membership where people could come on a daily basis, get deals and things. We've been doing things where you can have a business card, you put it over, if you've got a product, it can come up and spin round, you know, the application. So it's interesting, augmented reality, virtual reality, we can see something's going to happen in that space. Do you know biohacking? See this? This is for real. People are now putting stuff in them. So this guy, he walks past, and he opens doors because it's in there, right? It's the most uncomfortable thing I've ever seen, but we need the biohackers to prove this stuff. So the technology is now coming inside us. We're seeing the fact, so I keep saying banking is useful, and you'll see it here. So, but, you know, with the banking, we've got voice recognition, you know, from the feeling of your, you know, your breath, your heartbeat. It's a different world. And then on the voice is really interesting. 2017 is the year of the voice. Why type? Who's going to waste time typing? My dad and my mum, in fact, my mum had arthritis, and Google, she loves it. She pushes the button, says it into Google, most of the time gets it right, and it goes up. So you got Alexa, Siri, your guys, which called it OK Google. Imaginative, right? But what's great, the technology comes out, and then you get the disruptors, people like myself come up. I know this is a brilliant case recently. Burger King then said, well, if these machines talk to you, they had an advert that came out and said, hello, Google, what is a Whopper? So 1 million these things popped up. According to Wikipedia, a Whopper is blah, blah. So what you had is, apparently this wasn't okay with Google. So what you have is devices talking to each other with no interaction. So it's been really interesting. I think the thing we've learned is never accept that what I'm looking at is the end point. Every year we used to rip up our business and start again because we realized that the social networks we had, say in 2002, was going to be very different in 2004. So my entrepreneurial journey, I'll just take you through this, or as my mother-in-law called it, the roller coaster ride you took my daughter on. Okay, so this was me, aged 11. My brother took a gap year when he was 18, traveled off around the world, and I saw a photo very similar to the one at the top. This is called boom netting in Australia. I saw a picture of Ayers Rock, and I thought, I wanted to do this. At 18, I want to go there, be in those photos, and I guess this was my first obsession. Okay, so that was the thing I decided I was going to do. I got a job at McDonald's after I finished A-levels. I earned money, and I went on my gap year. When I've traveled around the world, off via Pacific Islands, back through Southeast Asia, had an amazing, amazing time. And then I really got the travel bug. I went to university. When I was at university, I met, on my first day, a beautiful Russian girl, and just absolutely lovely girl, and went out to Russia. So I had a trip out to Russia. We were together for a little bit, and then she dumped me. And because I was gutted, being a young man, I decided to hitchhike across Canada to get over this. So I hitchhiked across Canada, traveled down through America. I was actually a didgeridoo player, which I picked up from my travels, and I would earn money with my didgeridoo. I'd do anything. I'd work on trucks, I'd work in bars, and I earned cash, and I traveled around the world. And I just did lots of that. Tom, how do you do this thing? How do you book flights? How do you plan it? And it was really interesting. I had loads of beers and coffees with people and said, how do you do this? And I genuinely sat there. First of all, I said, how do you do this? And I thought, there's a first problem. And the solution is, come up with a solution. Is there something out there? And I was genuinely sitting on the toilet one day, and I came up with this idea for a book I was going to write called Before You Go. Now, considering I didn't really read books, my English teacher gave them up on me years ago, I decided this is what I was going to do. I was going to do a no-nonsense guide to backpacking. So I finished university, I graduated, I was an economist at this stage of economics, and I then needed to write this book. I had no plan. My dad thought I was going to go off and work with KPMG or someone. There I was writing this. I'm a didgeridoo player, so I actually bought out an album. I thought I'll create a little album, a tape. So I did that, and I bussed on the streets, and I earned money. I was earning, so this is 1996, I was earning £100 an hour, cash. And that was funding me, and I was writing this book. And I thought, this is an interesting thing. And then suddenly the press started this local press picked up on me, and I realized, this is good. I can get headlines. That's very cool. So then I bought the book out. So I persuaded a publisher to publish it. I persuaded this fella, who the younger audience don't know who he is, but this is Michael Palin, who was very famous in his day. I persuaded him to write a foreword. I then persuaded the Times to launch my book. I rocked up to the Times and said, I've got a book to launch. They went, cool. I even got my picture on the front page of the Times. And then I realized I just need to ask media. So then I started appearing in the local press, and Times gave me another piece. Next thing I'm on BBC Breakfast. Then I'm on radio. And I was just talking about gap years and travel. And it's really interesting. I sort of learned that I can promote myself. This is very cool. So the internet, this is what the internet is, a very basic thing. BBC News saying we're updated every minute of every day. That's 97. And people came up and said, right, okay, we like what you're telling us in the book. That's great. But where can we get gap year advice on this internet thing? So I didn't have a clue about the internet. So I found a man who did. That's called Peter. And he was a mate of mine, usual thing. Chat to a mate. So I did. I had no money. So we moved into Peter's flat, which is on the left there. And I slept on his sofa. And we continued writing. We launched our first website. And kind of looked something like this. We bought thegapyear.co.uk and thegapyear.com. So we thought that's what you do. And we launched the first website. So this was in 1998. And then we got a lot of traffic to the website. And people said, well, how do I then meet other people doing this? I want to meet other backpackers. So we then created what we called a community site. We thought, why don't you have a profile where you can kind of log in and be a member? What do we call it? I don't know. So these things were popping up. So we did that. And what you're looking at here, this is actually our version 99, but we did one in 98. This is one of the world's first social network platforms. There's a bunch of us in London doing this. We had no idea what we were doing. And it sort of developed. And then, whoopsie, we didn't want to see that one. Right, so, and then we, it's coming out. So then we thought, to careers advisors, saying, this is great. So you've got the books, right? You're doing talks, you've got the website, but we want more, better advice. So we went looking for publishers. So me being me, I thought, who's a big publisher? Just thought, oh, you got Branson out there. So I'd actually done a cheeky little thing, which you can see my nerves in my right foot there of how nervous I actually was doing it. I realised if I took my kid off, did something, we could do a promo thing. We sent this to Virgin as a little, look what we're doing. Branson thought, that's a good idea. So he asked, generally, his team asked if he could use it to launch his first book. And he did. And he quite liked the fact that we got him naked. And thought, who the hell are these guys, right? And so we chatted to them. We got another book out. So I launched my second book with Virgin. Then we started looking about creating a magazine. The only problem at this stage, it was all kind of going well, but we'd just completely run out of cash. So I went to a bank and said, right, I've got this brilliant idea. I kind of got this website. Internet, you'll figure that out later on. Right, and they need a magazine, right? And the bank managers, I think her nephew had taken a gap year and didn't have any advice. Bonus. Oh, do you know what? Imagine a magazine. It's brilliant. £10,000 you can have. Thought, fantastic. Signed up. I didn't have any money, right? So then we thought we've got to find someone to design this. So this is in Shepherd's Bush. And down the alleyway just to the right, there's a design agency. I can't remember how we found it. We just and we turned up there and then used the money to then create a pilot for Gap Year magazine, do promotion for the website. And then we launched our very first brand. And we became gapyear.com. The reason being it was the .com boom, we thought we should use the .com one. And so things were sort of going really well there, apart from the fact we then properly ran out of money. So we had nothing. So we spoke to the design agency and we said, I suppose we could kind of move in. And what we'll do some work here. So we did. So we actually moved into the office. For real. Yeah, so we moved into the office. They thought it was quite novel. They went home. We worked. And we were working huge hours. And this isn't me just making this up. Nora would come in, the cleaning lady, 6 o'clock, and make her boys a cup of tea. And we would start working. We were working 7 days a week all the way through. We went 10,000 users, 25,000. It just kind of grew and grew. But we had absolutely zero money. The cooking facilities in this place were literally that and that, which meant that we would take bread, we would add that, and we made pot noodle sandwiches, and we lived off these things. You see, if you look at these ones, it's actually quite more appetizing than you think, right? But and you're going to think I made this up, but this is for real, right? Sometimes we had absolutely nothing. So we would, to make bread more interesting, we would toast the bit, and we would put the toast in the middle of the bread to make a toast sandwich, right? And we would have a tea, right? And this is what we did, but it was a surreal experience. There's me suddenly appearing on media, we got this, got a website, all the stuff going on, we had nothing. And these are our washing facilities. So the summer of 99 was quite hot, so we stank, right? And when we couldn't go around to friends of ours to have a shower, we would try and wash in a sink like that. And again, this is for real. This is the Muse block, the road's down there. We would sometimes take a shower there in the rain. Now, if anyone's tried to do it, I don't suppose any of you had because you're not entrepreneurs, it's really difficult to shower in the rain. And we once got discovered by someone. So this was all going on, but it was a really interesting time. You know, the dot-com boom was in full swing. People were looking out for interesting sites. And we came to the attention of a few people looking for interesting stuff in the space. And these guys turned up, and we had some connections, and these VCs turned up and thought, gee, we quite like you guys, right? And they invested 1.65 million quid into us, right? We did the deal in 2000, just as the dot-com day was finishing. So there we were, a couple of skanky guys. I mean, we'd have a meeting with these guys, desperately trying to look clean, right? But what they loved about us, they said, look, we like the fact you're real. We know the fact if we're going to give you cash, you're not going to spend it, right? And so then we took the money and we spent it. We basically developed the brand, we developed the magazine, and essentially we then developed what is the gap year, skeleton of the gap year industry you see today. An industry that we realised had value. We realised globally there was a value of more than about 50 million globally in this space. So we created the world's first kind of thing there. And then I started doing more in the media. So I think the lessons we learned from that is build it, believe in it, and they will come. That was the thing. We just always knew that if we had people would want people, and we had them. And we had them really early. We also realised never, ever give up. Right? I'm persistent. I just never give up. Right? My mum used to hate it as a kid, but apparently it's a good quality I have now. And we never, ever gave up, even when the times we had absolutely zero. And one time we even blagged a meeting with BT just when they were going to introduce Talk 21. And we turned up looking skanky. And the entire, there was 8 people, all the heads of things, said, we've got something these guys want. And we had to walk home because we couldn't afford it. And then we had our toast sandwiches, all right? And then it progressed from there. So over the next few years, we never stopped innovating. So we went initially to Midland Bank, show you how old I am, and they became HSBC. And we looked at the travel insurance they had for backpackers. And they had things like flood water damage and kenneling fees. And we're like, no, backpackers need more. And we actually then worked with Boots, and we launched the world's first gap year travel insurance, specific. And then we've had a market spawn because our customers wanted that. And we were the first to develop it. We went to all the banks, and we said, do you realise these gap year guys are earning, saving, and spending 800 million quid, right, when you add it all up? Then they go travelling, and then they come back to university. They're the people you want, but they're really attractive to you because in 10 years' time, they're the people. We did the research. We knew that they buy the mortgage and stuff. So HSBC then launched a gap year bank account with us. We did a thing with the prepaid cards when they first came out. I thought, this is fantastic for the gap year market. And we launched the first sort of global network attached to this space. So we just kept going. And I think that was the story here, is that you can see from our progression of developing a brand all the way through, we always had to keep going. Literally every year we looked at our business, ripped it up, started again. And I think a good example of the space we're in, if you look at the evolution of the social networks, so we started ours, our first one came up in 98. These guys, Face Party, you've probably never heard of them. They popped up 98, 99. In 99, they were the first ones to hit 1 million young people. And so they sort of grew at about 2000. Do you remember Friends Reunited? So Friends Reunited popped up. This is the first time, really, the older generation could go online and connect. MySpace then popped up. They kind of appeared about 2003. And every time people popped up, we looked at it and went, wow, that's cool. It's one of these, we call it community model. You call social networks. Wow, we're going to copy that. We realized what they did wrong pretty quickly was they said to people, you can have your space. Decorate it as you want. And basically, people just made it look horrible. It was an expression, it was like their entire inner thoughts came out to the world. And then it just made you look rubbish, okay? And interesting, I shared the stage at a conference in about 2005 with marketing director of MySpace. It was this preened Adonis on the stage telling the world how brilliant he was. And I told him about Face Party, because we knew the Face Party guys. And he said, do you know what? They never saw us coming. I thought, yes, that's a fair point. I thought, yeah, you can see these things sort of coming round. So Bebo popped up. Bebo said, well, it's not about your space, it's about you. Tell me about you and your connections. They were about 2005, and then Facebook popped up. And the rest is, they were the Facebook to start with, so we weren't the only people to get that wrong. And really interesting, about 2007, I shared the stage with the head of Facebook, and I said, yeah, I was with the guy from MySpace. And he's telling me he didn't see them coming. He said, yeah, they never saw us coming, right? So even in the big world, right, and this, on the tech, even the big giants were folding around. But even at this time, other brands, do you remember Kodak? So here's a brilliant fact here. There's a guy called Steve Sasson. He invented the first digital camera in 1975. And if you see that quote, he told the company, and they said, well, that's filmless photography. That's cute, but don't tell anyone. Okay? So there's a good brand which didn't go with the times. I think it's a lot of, right now in these exciting times, of people almost saying, I'm too terrified of tech, I'll stay here. And it's a dangerous thing to do. You've got brands like Lego, on the other hand, who've just continued morphing. It's a fantastic story. My kids, they go to watch these movies, all right? So, again, it's the thing about progressing. So, lessons I've learned, I think, within this period is there's no point in climbing to the top of the mountain unless you join the journey up. I was asking my wife about this. I said, did I enjoy the journey up? Thinking, yeah, I thought I enjoyed the journey up. She said, I think you hated it. We just worked and worked and worked, right? And I think, it's an interesting point. We worked phenomenal hours. And looking at my mountain, do you know what? We didn't really know where we were going. We just went. It was exciting. It was big. We were doing stuff. We worked ridiculous hours. And I didn't really know what my mountain was, okay? And then the thing is, when climbing a mountain, don't lose sight of the summit. Now, the reason we learnt this is because we lost sight of the summit. In 2006, I was sat at my desk in my office in Ipswich in Suffolk, and I had the MD of the Independent News Group and his CFO, and he offered us £8 million for our business. He said, I'll give you boys a couple of million now, and then we'll develop it. And we sat there, couldn't believe it. Just played it cool. Yeah, you're not the only one who's come in asking us. Jesus. So anyway, we headed out. At that point, we thought, this has got a bit big for us. We should have just shaken his hand, said, that's a good thing. But we didn't know where our summit was. We didn't know what we wanted, okay? So we went to see someone who just sold, I was introduced to the guy who sold Gumtree to eBay for about 30 million or something like that. And businesses like ours were changing hands for about 20 to 40 million in that range at the time. And we didn't know this, right? We just thought we had a site. So anyway, it was touted around. We met News Call. We met all the big guys. And for whatever reason, it didn't happen, okay? Yes, something I regret, but it didn't happen. Now, what happened then had changed as we then sat there and thought, well, where do we go from here? And I think you were referencing earlier, it's about companies saying, well, they get to a point, and where are they going to go? There's a sweet spot, isn't there? I think you were mentioning about how companies grow. And we didn't really know. In 2007, we had a big site, as you saw there, from 1.8 million people using the site globally. The average spend of our customers, £3,500. We had a valuable source of people. So at that stage, we were building our own IT out in South Africa. My business partner wanted to have more fun, went out to South Africa. I was having kiddies, staying back. We realized it was time to bolt into a travel agent. So we went and found a travel agent. Flight Centre is one of the world's largest independent travel agents. They're in a whole number of countries we wanted to be in, and we realised that we had something that we both wanted. So they had loads of countries. At the time, they're 11 billion Australian dollar business all over the world, and they wanted our expertise in the space. And we learned a good lesson there. There's all this thing about trying to get fundraising and grow. Do you know what? Find someone who wants the stuff you have. So in 2010, we did a deal. My business partner exited, went off to South Africa, had a bit of fun. And then I had a business partner that was worth 11 billion Australian dollars. And I thought, game on, this is good. And the problem is I had a business partner worth $11 billion, right? To put it in perspective, in Australia, they had a student travel business whose marketing business was bigger than our entire deal, right? So I suddenly found myself completely engulfed in this world that I didn't understand. And also then in 2010, and it was a difficult time, my mountains changed. Whoopsie. my youngest, age 5, nearly died of meningitis. Okay, this was the point, the worst point. I'm going to get emotional if I look at that. Right, so, so he nearly died of meningitis. And it suddenly made me realize that I hadn't seen my older 2 kids grow up. I was this hard-slogging entrepreneur. I just wasn't there for bath times. I didn't see nativities. I didn't do that. And I just thought, what's the real stuff here in life? So he survived. He's now a bouncing 7-year-old, I have to say. But it made us look at what we wanted. About a week later, Flight Centre got me up on stage, and I walked up in front of 1,500 people in Billingsgate Market. And I walked up on stage, little me, and I saw these massive screens, this little fella walking up. And there's just all these people, and I just thought, this isn't, I'd lost my mojo. We were trying to invest £1 million in creating a new site. I was trying to get it done corporate. So we decided, my wife, that it was time to move on. Okay, so I exited the business. I didn't make my billions, right? I did okay, but it didn't sort of end in that way. So I think what I learned there, it's only when you get to the top of the mountain, you realize there are other mountains. And that's a really big thing. We looked down, we realized that the time between 30 and 40 had gone really quickly. What's important for us, it was family and working out what to do. So the next mountain happens to be a little place you're quite familiar with. And we decided to come home to mummy, okay, and do the good thing. So look, what am I doing here? So there's 2 things I do. One, I help organisations. So I help people in organisations just as volunteers. So I set up collaborative groups. So I set up a thing called Derry Creatives. There's over 900 people in Derry now attached to this group. It's owned by the people of Derry. We have an artisan group. I create campaigns. We help sort of young entrepreneurs. So that's my sort of doing my bit. And I find that really interesting. It's fun. It's challenging. I've now become a consultant, which is a new thing for me, having done this. So I have a bunch of stuff that I do now. But I find this really interesting. I've come to Northern Ireland, I think, at a really good time. I've come to a time when Brexit, it's a bit worrying, but actually there's lots of really good stuff sort of happening right now. And just to finish off, I'll show you a couple of examples of things I'm working on that might have resonance with some of you here. So I've been I work with an organisation called Voluntary Arts Ireland. And they do everything from singing, dancing, drawing, crochet, people aged from 1 to 100. And what they needed a campaign, a high-impact campaign to get out there. They had no cash, but something really to put them on the map. So I created a campaign called the #Love2 campaign. So the simple concept, every single month, we focused on an area. We used a hashtag, anybody can get involved. Okay, really, really simple. So for any of you out there, no money, looking for a campaign idea, just use the hashtags. There's some really cool stuff you can do. And basically, it meant that every month I came up with insane ideas. So we did a flash mob on the Giant's Causeway to promote dance. We got the guys, storyboarders at Game of Thrones, to create a storyboard for Halloween for the kids. We did some really cool pumpkins. Look at these, for carving pumpkins. And we turned the big screen outside Belfast City Hall into a giant advent calendar for the kids, which is pretty cool. And then this is one we're quite well known for. We made a massive pair of pants. And this is to promote knitting. So 100 pensioners gorilla knitted these pants. We then took them to the Giant's Causeway. They're Finn McCall's pants, Professor Longbottom. And then we put the drone up of these pants arriving on Giant's Causeway. Okay? And it was brilliant, right? It just sort of took off. Another of our good ones for Halloween, we did a thing with pumpkins where we got Rory McIlroy's face carved onto a pumpkin, and we put it out, and it went really well. It actually appeared on the front page of the PGA website. Okay, over 1 million people saw this within about 72 hours. It was phenomenal. Put Rory McIlroy's face on something. It works, right? So, but it was brilliant. Best thing about it, it didn't actually look like Rory McIlroy, but who cares, right? So basically, this became the UK's largest digital arts campaign. Over 60 million social impressions in 1 year, okay, off a budget of less than £5,000. And the message here is we just did something different, something interesting. And that's kind of what Northern Ireland's kind of crying out for. And we have the philosophy, you aim for the moon to hit the stars. Simple as that. You just sit there in a meeting and go, giant pants, let's just do this. And there's actually a model behind this that they teach at Harvard. And it's the thing over successive time. It says, look, if you aim for that and you go there, you're better than where you are before. They don't teach us at Harvard, so I made up. Right? If you hit that one, wowzers! And then, oopsie, you take the philosophy of some you win, some you lose. Right? So for the science park, I don't know if any of you saw this, I was the guy behind the Thurman invention. So it was an April Fool's joke. So we pretended that someone invented a a thing which discovered man flu, right? It went down really well. We did a thing, Hug from Home, which is a cool little food thing that had tens of thousands of views. Look, my criticism, being honest, in a lot of Northern Ireland is that there's this reticence to try something. Oh, what are people going to think? In fact, it's just do it, right? We lost a lot. Oopsie, sorry, I was flicking. We lost some as well. You win some, you lose some. We thought we had a brilliant breaking news story about politicians agreeing. We had all these politicians saying we thought Northern Ireland seafood was good. That's going to be a winner. This is going to go nuts. Yeah, tanked, right? But we learnt. That's the big thing. So look, stuff we learn here. Try stuff and aim high. Don't worry about people think. You need to fail to get better. I think this came out in your thing. Fail. And don't be afraid to fail. And also we implement 100-day plans, which used to be cool until Donald Trump does it, right? So, and just kind of get on and do it. And then finally, Brexit. I thought I'd bring this one up. I'm working with an organisation called Sea Source. They're fishermen down in Kilkeel. They're cooperative. And of course, obviously, particularly with prawns and scallops, they've got to get their product out beyond Europe now, looking at new markets, Dubai, Hong Kong. And so it's been interesting. This is what I got to start play with. You know, it's a very no money. It's a difficult thing. So what we've done with this, we realised we needed a brand. So we created a cooler, more relevant brand. Created a strap line, world-class seafood from Northern Ireland. Do you know what? Just that brand and that strap line at Balmoral, we won an award because we were proud to go out and say, look, we're world-class from Northern Ireland. And I don't think enough people are going out. In the world stage, it's really, really important. We created a 100-day plan, as we do, and within that, we've created a statement for the company that runs everything. We've got a brilliant little video that tells the stories. We've got a whole load of brochures, material. We've come up with campaigns. I Love Seafood campaign and Buy Local. And we've got a thing called a Shelfie, #Shelfie, or whatever it's called, Shelfie and I. We've got famous people and other people doing it. It's a shellfish selfie, right? You basically just make this stuff up, think, we'll give it a go. And yeah, sure enough, Arlene Foster, Michelle, all these guys turned up and they stuck these things on and it worked, okay? So, and what we've got to a position here where very quickly, within just over a month, we've been able to create these slides on the right, which are now being used to pitch for business. And those slides were used in a meeting 2 weeks ago. Some Italian buyers were in, and there's £500,000 worth of business on the table. What we realized was we needed to focus on the sales pitches first, right? Use this stuff, get the money in. The website's rubbish, right? But we'll do that later. And I think that's the big thing of just getting on. And the Brexit, it's a scary thing. But what I like about what Sea Source has done, they said, we're just going to be the masters of our own destiny. We're going to go out, and that's the path. And that's really the messages for Brexit, really. You know, have a clear identity. This is what we've learnt anyway. It might not work for you. You know, have a clear identity, keep it simple, and stay focused. We could have created the website. We could have done all that, but we did the other stuff first because the money was there. Show pride, people and place. We've learned that when we've been pitching Dubai and Italians, they love hearing about the people and the place, right? And in the social world, you can bring this out in the digital world. Choose your path and follow it and really have courage. Everyone's terrified at the moment, but, you know, you can sit there and think, oh, God, I hope it's going to go all right, or just follow that path. So really, on the journey, what have I learned? I've learned to understand the mountain you're climbing. If I had done, I'd be very wealthy by now. Do you know what? These things happen when you're an entrepreneur. Just do. Don't worry about what people think. Really, I can't impress that here in Northern Ireland. You're hearing some brilliant stuff here on the social side, but people just not doing it. You're terrified about what people think. Don't worry about it. So much content out there, they won't notice, right? To get it right, make loads of mistakes, right? You see, I'm a very open guy. I've told you I lost a load of money. I do things. I don't care. Make mistakes because that's how I learn. Always aim for the moon because you hit the stars and sometimes you go above. Works well. Do less to achieve more and enjoy the ride. Right? I didn't enjoy the ride. It took my wife to point out that I wasn't enjoying the ride and we got off. And it's one of the best things. Also learned I would have given it all up for him. I think that was a big, big thing. It was the wake-up call for me. Probably a number of you in the room, you work the long hours, right? It's always the long hours, the doing. And suddenly realize, bloody, I've got kids. I've got a life. Life's the bit that happens when daddy's at work, right? So, and I think that's the thing. There's my family. Enjoy the moment. So for me, what I've learned is enjoying the moment. I've learned to say yes more. So my kids, it's always, Daddy's just working. Daddy's just got to do this. My son says, Daddy, I want you to be a stormtrooper. Here's your thing. I go, yes. and we have a fight, and it's brilliant. And I think also in business, too many default setting for Northern Ireland is no. Someone says a great idea, social media person, probably the least well-paid person in the room saying, do this, and people say, no, we're not going to do it. Try and say yes more. And finally, I guess, the number one, always know who calls the shots. That's important. Thank you.